The ACC has jumped the shark. You've got Duke and Miami both with 6-2 conference records. Miami is 10-2 overall and ranked number 12 nationally. Duke is 7-5 overall and unranked. So who gets into the ACC championship game? Well, naturally it's Duke.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, the Miami Hurricanes only had one thing in their control on Saturday, and that was going into chilly Pittsburgh and winning. Not only did Miami do that, they did it in dominant fashion. They completed their second consecutive 10-plus win season. Only time that that's happened, first time that it's happened consecutively since 2002 and 2003. So Miami did their job, but the chaos did not help Miami one bit. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On this loaded episode, we will review Miami's dominant win at Pittsburgh, 38-7, where the Hurricanes put an exclamation point on what ended up being a very positive season. The fate, of course, of Miami's postseason future lies in the hands of others, unfortunately. We'll talk about the ACC standings. We'll talk about the college football playoff standings, bringing in our very good friend here, Raymond, a.k.a. G.A. Kane fan. So, Raymond, of course, everything about the ACC makes sense. You know, the Duke Blue Devils are in a cluster of 6-2 teams in conference, right? You've got the SMU Mustangs at 6-2, the Miami Hurricanes at 6-2, Pittsburgh 6-2, Georgia Tech 6-2. Georgia Tech beat Duke head-to-head, by the way, this season. Duke at 6-2. Duke has an inferior overall record to all of those teams. Duke this season lost out of conference to UConn. They lost to Tulane, despite stealing Tulane's quarterback in the offseason, and they got blown out by Illinois. But because apparently Duke's opponents in conference had a slightly higher winning percentage than anyone else's in that tie, Duke at 7-5 gets the nod. And by the way, the team who came in first place in the ACC regular season, Virginia, they go 7-1 in conference despite losing a game to a conference opponent that turned out to be a non-conference game. I think we should shut down the ACC, Raymond.
I don't know what we should do, but this is the problem of having a super conference in one division. It's maddening, and all the science has to go back through it. This is a huge problem with the ACC. It's going to have to get addressed. I don't know they're going to have the guts to go through the pods, but I doubt that now going to a 9-conference season, 9-game conference season. But they're going to have to do something. Well, the first thing they're going to have to do is, bottom line is the tiebreaker is going to have to be head-to-head first, depending on the record, and then who is the highest in the playoff. Right now, they've got no choice because they're in a scenario, they are in a threat of having nobody in the playoff. Because God forbid, let's have some fun. Duke beats Virginia. Yeah. Duke will be 8-5. Do you really think they want to have an 8-5 team in the playoff? Oh my God. With no clinches, the SEC and Big 10 will basically go in there and really rip apart and prevent anyone from getting into their individual, invite tournament. It's going to be a really chance. So that's going to be no ACC teams. And I fault the commissioner on this one horribly, not thinking through the situation, but they haven't done that in the last several years.
And by the way, just so people know, like you compare it, it came down to what, a 5-team comparison where Duke gets the edge because of conference winning percentage of their opponents. Just so you know, Duke did not beat anyone that Miami lost to this year, just so we're clear. Like, this would be a little bit more palatable, like if Duke had head-to-head wins against Louisville and SMU, who Miami lost to. That's not the case. Duke and Miami, of course, did not play head-to-head this year. And yeah, you mentioned it, Raymond, that if Duke ends up winning the ACC, now they already lost to Virginia earlier this year. So you might say, hey, Virginia has their number, or you might say, hey, it might be hard to beat Duke twice in the same season. But if Duke wins the ACC, they most likely will not get a bid because a lot of people assume the ACC gets an auto bid. That's not the case. auto bids go to the 5 highest ranked conference champions. So there is a chance that 2 group of 5 teams could be higher ranked than a conference champion Duke. Now, the other unfortunate part of that is because I had a couple people messaging me yesterday that say, hey, well, this is great. If the ACC champion doesn't get an auto bid, that helps Miami. No, it doesn't, because you still would have another group of 5 team that would get an auto bid and force Miami to have to be number 10, not number 12. So with Miami being number 12 right now, the other part of what happened, Raymond, yesterday was none of the teams that were ranked, 5 or 6 spots ahead of the Hurricanes, none of those teams lost, right? You would have needed one of those other 2 lost teams to lose a game. We had like a glimmer of hope that LSU could beat Oklahoma. They blew it. UCF had a 14-0 lead against BYU. They blew it. Auburn was close, but no cigar against Alabama. They didn't help us out whatsoever. So Miami, you have to wonder, is the committee going to start to say, you know what, regardless of where we had them last week, Miami honestly does look like one of the top 10 teams in the country, and we should just move them up just because. But obviously, Raymond, the fear would be, since there were no new losses from teams in front of Miami, worst case scenario, you stand pat at number 12. And number 12 is not good enough, because with the auto bids, you got to be top 10.
No, because none of the teams from the other conferences are going to be undefeated. So that's going to be a problem for mine where you can actually slip in there. It's going to be that's why I think I should be a rule actually from the power of those 5 conferences. You've got to be undefeated to make the playoff. I don't think you have 1 loss, 2 loss. You might get the revenue sharing, but that's my opinion. But Heather Dinch has got the inside track on exactly what's going on with the committee. They're telling her everything, and they're saying Miami's not going to move, and it probably won't. There's lots going to have to happen with the bowl games. We were close, but no cigar to getting some of the upsets we really needed. But the biggest thing that's going to happen is Mario is really pushing hard. His interview at the end of the Pitt game was brilliant. But we need that from the AD. Got to miss Paul. Got to rest Paul D. If you meant Paul was still alive, this was happening, how much he'd be unraveling the press. And the ACC commission needs to make a statement, either and publicly, how he wants to do it. He could be as polite and professional, and then behind the scenes rail the committee and rail the other conference going, you leave us out. We need to really start thinking about what we want to do moving forward. It's not right. But we're just in that scenario too. It's not been a good situation. It's confusing. I mean, heck, when you get people like Paul Feinbaum and anti-Miami people, or at least like the cartoon characters they play on ESPN, and they're defending Miami, there's a problem, and it is being recognized.
Yeah, and just I want to throw this out there in terms of Miami's resume this season, and it turns out we're going to be in pretty much the exact same spot that we were in last year. 10-2 finish to the regular season, right on the bubble, where you're either going to be the first or the second team out, more than likely. But we also understand that a lot of the committee's criteria is based on the eye test. It's based on, well, who really looks like a playoff team? Who looks like they belong? And I do think, for what it's worth, Miami's 2025 resume compares very favorably to their own resume in 2024. Unfortunately, there are other variables there that could still keep you out. But you think about where Miami was a year ago. Obviously, a dynamic offense and an electrifying playmaker in Cam Ward. But Miami essentially had no defense a year ago. Like, Miami did not have a playoff defense, whereas this year, Miami does have a playoff defense, and the offense is playoff caliber. It's been playoff caliber, at least for the past 4 weeks and for most of the season. So this team, unlike last year, does not have a glaring weakness of any kind, right? So you don't have Cam Ward, the dynamic playmaker at quarterback, but you do have Malachi Toney, the dynamic electric playmaker at receiver / running back / wildcat quarterback / whatever. So Miami does have that element as well. And then another thing, Raymond, that seems to be a criteria for the committee is, what sort of momentum do you have at the end of the season? Last year, Miami lost 2 out of their final 3 games, including the finale against Syracuse. So you could say, hey, well, this team is not playing playoff football right now in the month of November. This year, it's different. Miami had their lull in the middle of the season, right? They lost their 6th game and their 8th game of the year, but they've been surging for the past 4 games. So Miami has the forward momentum this year that they didn't have last year. So I think these factors actually give Miami, in my humble opinion, a much stronger case to be a playoff team on the bubble in 2025 than they were at this time a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last year we were speaking, I said I didn't think we were going to make the playoff, nor did I think we deserve it specifically, not just losing to Syracuse at Syracuse, but the way they lost it with that fumble from Restrepo, and they just didn't play well. But the defense was horrible. We would have gotten a playoff. We would have gotten smashed, whoever we would have played, because that defense was so bad. Ward can only do so much. But it's definitely a better resume. But unfortunately, there's a lot of other really good teams as well, too, as expanded playoffs. So we're got a lot of 2-loss teams that are very competitive, and everyone wants to slam Dame. And yes, Miami beat Dame, but Notre Dame's a very good team. I don't underestimate Dame. They could do damage in the playoffs.
I think they should both be in the playoff. Like,
yes,
it's unfortunate. And like, if you're going by like how good these teams actually look, I've got my concerns about Oklahoma, who's likely to be in the playoff, right? So I think that's one where you say, do you really want their offense? Because like Oklahoma's 2025 offense is what Miami's 2024 defense was. Do you really want that in the playoff?
I'll expand it even more. Georgia's not looking very good either. I mean, they struggled against Tech, and Tech got smashed by Pitt in 28 points. Their quarterback, who I think has been questionable, had his worst game of the season. And their defense is not very good. And it's been reported a lot locally in the press. That is the concern. I mean, the SEC really is questionable. And now we let A&M lose to Texas. Yeah. So it's wide open. So there's no real dominant SEC. Nick Saban running Alabama, and you ain't going to stop Alabama. They're going to kill everybody back in the day. Not now, not this year. And Alabama still struggled against Auburn. There's no great team. It's just Miami just has to find a way to get in. And the Big Ten is the one that looks more dominating. And I'll say it right now: Ohio State's going to repeat. I think they're going to repeat as national champions. I think that's going to be a great Big Ten championship between Indiana and Ohio State. And I'm 55 years old. I never thought in my life I was going to say an Indiana team this good. And that's great. I'm glad because, they were known for Bobby Knight basketball and throwing chairs and hitting players. But that team is impressive. But there's some very weak teams I think that Miami could beat. I think Miami could beat Oklahoma. I think Miami could beat Georgia. I think Miami could beat Texas.
Yeah, for sure.
Away. And because this team is focused, this team is on all sorts. They are playing the best they're playing right now compared to last year, where they just blew 2 games and their defense was a mess. This team is very good, and Saban's been really pumping. Now there's a relationship with him and Mario. I'm not ignorant enough to think, hey, he's trying to help his friend, but he says that is the most dangerous team, and that's also part of the thing too. I don't think anyone wants to play Miami in this playoff outside of Ohio State. I think they win the majority of the matchups against any team but Ohio State, and I'm not an Ohio State fan by any means.
No, I very few people with Miami affiliations are fans of Ohio State by any means. But when we come back, let's talk about that exclamation point that Miami just put on their season. I know I had to talk my guy Grease off a ledge last night. That was a blowout. I don't know how you can't call what happened on Saturday like Miami blew Pittsburgh out. We'll break it down. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, Game Time is the only ticket app that I use. And no matter what Miami's next game is, whether it's just a bowl game or a college football playoff game, I'm going to be buying my tickets on the Game Time app. And hey, the World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. 48 teams for the first time ever. It's going to be massive, but let's be honest. Getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Guys, the seat view feature is a game changer. You literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. We're also proudly brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Guys, the holidays always feel a little easier when you know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. Guys, I've given Omaha Steaks as a gift before, and the reaction is always the same. Excitement when the box arrives and even bigger smiles when everything hits the grill. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off on select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. How about these deals? Sorry, that's just promo code COLLEGE. Promo code COLLEGE. Use that at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See website for details. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network #1. We have the everydayers to thank for that. Our guy Raymond, GA Cane fan, joins us. All right, so Raymond, in Miami's 38-7 systematic destruction of the Pittsburgh Panthers on Saturday, I think the first thing that stands out is Malachi Toney, who it's talking about a true freshman. I know we tend to forget because he's so mature and so dominant on the field. He became yesterday Miami's all-time leading freshman receiver. He surpassed Amon Richards, who set the previous record back in 2016. Malachi he's over 940 receiving yards now, so he's closing in on 1,000-yard season, which obviously at Miami has never been done before by a true freshman. He gets 165 yards of total offense in the game because he threw for a 9-yard touchdown. He rushed 10 times for 30 yards. And actually, one of my favorite stats from the game was Malachi Toney had as many rushing yards as the entire Pittsburgh Panthers offense, 10 carries for 30 yards, which was great. And he catches 13 passes for 126 yards and a touchdown. I'm not exactly sure why Toney is on nobody's Heisman radar this year, but I would imagine, Raymond, he's going to enter next season as one of the front runners for that award.
Yeah, very much. I think you can pretty much call him the offensive MVP this season. Yeah. He's really carried the team. They've used him properly. And to correct you, forgive me, Toney had 5 carries for 30 yards, so he has 6 yards.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know why I
It's all good.
10. Yeah,
5. It's okay. You're looking at Fletcher,
yeah,
who had 10 for 30.
The wrong spot on the box score.
And he's done really well. Yeah, he's going to be probably top 10 Heisman favorite next year, depending on the quarterback for the Hurricanes. It's going to be a big factor or two, but absolutely, he's the most exciting player. I mean, they're comparing him to Rocket Ismail, which is kind of bittersweet for me as a receiver, but he is that dynamic. He seems to be a team leader. His attitude's always good. I mean, you just kind of tell his body language, and he on every single play, and they're giving him the ball a lot. It's almost scary how much they're using him. It's like, I'm terrified they're going to try to throw for a pass, and someone's just going to drill him. He's going to get hurt. It terrifies me. But he has just been so outstanding. He's all and then some. I think what the Miami coaching staff thought he was going to be coming in. And he's supposed to be a high school. He's been in the Florida State high school playoffs at quarterback, Alex, not on the border of being on the college playoffs. That's the amazing part of the young man.
Yeah, he's just having a remarkable year. I mentioned he had as many rushing yards as the entire Pitt Panthers offense. Pitt, they put up nearly 200 rushing yards against Georgia Tech last week. Miami holds them to 30 rushing yards. Now, Pittsburgh has a top 35 defense and a top 10 rushing defense. Miami was able to run for 140 yards, which was significant because Miami had to stick with their running game. They struggled a little bit early, but they were able to wear down Pitt's defensive line, and then the big gains started coming, especially in the second half. Gerard Pringle led Miami with 80 rushing yards yesterday, and Miami on that very good Pittsburgh defense was able to put up 416 yards of total offense and 38 points. So that's, again, one of the more respectable defenses in the country. Carson Beck had another big game. Raymond, interception aside, he did throw an INT, which was the first in 4 games that he had thrown, but Beck ends up completing 79% of his passes. He goes 23 for 29, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And he's playing as well as just about any quarterback in the country. Like, in a common theme, Raymond, in a lot of the other games that I watched on Saturday, rooting for certain outcomes, I noticed there was a lot of bad quarterback play around college football, not in Miami right now.
No, he's playing incredibly well. I'm glad to see him have such a good year. but maybe, God forbid it's his final game. But I think he's really proved himself, and I think he was basically inspired with situation, the way he left UGA and the aftermath and the nonsense that kind of. But he's played extremely well, and I don't know, but I think he's a potential late first round pick potentially, depending on the combine and interviews. But no, he'll be no later than a late second round pick, because the draft, like you said, quarterback play is bad. There's no strong number one draft pick, period, overall.
Yeah.
I mean, right now they're saying the Titans are going to get it again, and who are they saying? Bain. The Titans, if they get the first round pick, is get him or trade down and get Bain in, top 5. Yeah. It's the only one that's impossible is forgive me for getting his name, everybody, but the gentleman from Indiana is the only potential. But still,
Fernando Mendoza.
Fernando Mendoza, and good for him, has a great season. I'm glad he go to Miami. I think there have been issues in respect of the relationship between his father and Mario. There could have been so they made the right decision. But Beck's done so well, and he's definitely proven himself. And he took some hits. But he was also really smart. I know you noticed one play where he was trying to slide. He was about to get nailed, and he turned his back to the defensive back. It's like, that's a smart veteran play.
Yep.
But also on the defense, one thing you haven't mentioned, and maybe you're going to get to it, I'm jumping the gun, is Pitt's defense was very frustrated with that offense. That's why you saw 2 key personal foul play. I mean, it was just the first one it happens, okay, but to do it again and let Miami drive line, that game was over then. Then that Pitt team basically quit, and they broke. They just completely started. Like you see Narduzzi just losing it, going, "What are you doing, guys?" And that was the game, and that truly was the game. But keeping composure, and that's the one thing about this Miami team and Mario. This team is composed. This team is focused. It's like they were on a mission. They were angry. They were focused, and they knew what they had to do, and they did it yesterday.
Yeah, I always like to, after these games, win or lose, I like to review my keys to the game and whether Miami executed those or not. Our first key, heading into the Pitt game, this was coming out of the Virginia Tech game where Miami struggled against the run, a lot of outside runs against the Hokies. So outside contain, setting the edge. Miami obviously did that. Pitt only rushed for 30 yards. That was a huge success for Miami's rushing defense. So that key was accomplished. My next key, and we could talk about this one, Raymond, pressure. Mason Heinschel, who, when pressured, came into that game 140th in the nation with a 34.3 passing grade under pressure. Miami did that. Pitt was giving up 3.27 sacks per game. Miami sacked him 4 times, pressured him countless other times. Hurricanes were able to successfully rattle the freshman quarterback and make him uncomfortable.
Yep, and Miami, also the big thing is penalties. Miami really only 5 for 28, and their offensive line only jumped off sides once, and I can't remember who did it. I have my notes here, but that's not important. But the discipline was there, as I said earlier. They were focused and ready to go. 5 for 28 was brilliant, and also not to get caught up in the nonsense of what the Panthers were doing with the stupid penalties and not taking the bait or doing anything else. Of course, my favorite part is maybe you caught this when the Pittsburgh kicker missed that field goal around the second period, and then he tried to basically dive, like, "Oh, you hit me in the face," and I'm like, give me a break. I'm like, oh, someone just hit. It's not the old days in the 80s. You can't hit the kid and play kickers anymore. But God, I see someone whack him on the kickoff.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, you nailed it, because my next key was penalties. Keep the penalties down. Miami did win the penalty battle compared to Pittsburgh, although they found a new one to call on Miami, assisting the runner. I'd never seen that or heard that one before. Probably will never see it again.
And actually, I don't know why Mario didn't, basically throw the challenge flag, because he didn't do that until after the ball had crossed the goal line. So he already scored a touchdown. So I didn't get that.
I don't think you can challenge that either way.
You can't. I wasn't sure. It was also less than 2 minutes in the second quarter, so they may not be able to do it either that way. But they still got the touchdown. But I've seen that. It's like I'm on the old school. Get rid of helping the runner, stop the tush push, all the other garbage. Just they need to put that rule back in. Yeah, but,
you can't challenge. You just have to hope that they do an official review. Like, the most you can do is like call a timeout, hope that they review it, but that wasn't in the cards either way. And then two other keys. Miami accomplished this one for sure. Continue just the variety on offense, the creativity of play calling. They did that 1,000%. Shannon Dawson has been in his bag, and win the turnover battle. It was a wash. Neither team had a turnover, so being net zero in turnovers was good enough for Miami to get it done. So those were your keys. Miami won 38-7 against Pitt. All we can do now is, I guess, pray, hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and hope that BYU gets blown out again by Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. because Raymond, I know the committee tries to say that we don't want to penalize you for losing in a conference championship game. I don't know. I think if BYU loses convincingly to Texas Tech, who already blew them out once this year, it would be hard. It would be hard not to jump Miami in front of BYU.
I don't think they're going to have a choice because there's going to be 2 losses and 2 blowouts, and Texas Tech wants to blow them out again. They want to make sure they get that top 4 seed. They want they want that bye week, and it's very important to have that bye week to get everybody rested because they've had some injuries. So that's really the only thing we're hoping for. I mean, the SEC title game is going to be Ole Miss versus UGA. Now that's going to be the next thing. Is we are all waiting for the Kiffin situation with Kiffin and what he's going to do. Is he now, from what I've read, LSU is almost a done deal? No. I think he's making a mistake. I think he's stayed at Ole Miss. Yeah. I don't. You don't have. Indiana's a perfect example. You don't have to be a blue blood program now to win with the NIL and the transfer portal. You don't need to be that. And I think he should stay. And I really would hate it if he did leave. And I like Kiffin. I've always liked Kiffin for a very long time. Yeah, he's got his quirks, but so do I. And he's caused problems with Tennessee and the Tennessee leaving and all that. But he's a great coach. He's a very good coach. And the one thing people maybe forget is he interviewed for the Miami job when that was available. Mario was like between him and Mario, but the Boosters won Mario, so it was a done deal. I hope he doesn't leave, because then what's going to happen? And that could be another thing that happened. He could leave. Players could start transferring, and the committee's like, you know what? Maybe we need to make some changes here and drop Ole Miss down. Yeah. Can you imagine the outrage at Oxford if that happens? If you did the Florida State, now granted it was a rule, of course, so the key player is hurt, you could take that into consideration. But wow, to pull Ole Miss, and then all of a sudden they're a top 4 seed, and then they drop off. But we're supposed to hear something today, so that's the other hope for Miami. But to me, that'd be a crappy back way in to get into the playoff.
Yeah, well, everything I hear about Kiffin is he wants to leave for LSU, and I agree with you. I think it's ridiculous how you spend 6 years in Oxford building that team into what looks like a perennial college football playoff team, and then you want to leave that to go and start over somewhere else where you have it. Like, you built it right now. Not to mention, you go to LSU, there's so much more pressure there, and God forbid it doesn't work out in your first 3 years, right? I mean, you're the king of Oxford right now. You go somewhere else and they might fire you if things don't go right for your first 3 years there. But from everything I hear about Kiffin, he wants to go to LSU, but he wants to have his cake and eat it too. Like, he's trying to negotiate. He has to negotiate with Ole Miss's athletic director, who's got to let him do this, and with LSU, who's trying to hire him. He wants to coach the playoff at Ole Miss before he leaves, which is, I think, an uphill battle, right? Because Ole Miss doesn't want to ruin their amazing season, so maybe they'll let Lane coach, but they also want to start their coaching search. And then LSU is like, hey, we got National Signing Day coming up, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. Like, if you want to be our coach, come be our coach, right? So he's got to negotiate that with all sides.
And this is the issue that's really breaks my heart. I hate it with college football. It's the calendar. The calendar's screwed up. And I'm a traditionalist. I would like to see the national championship game the first, second, third, fourth at the latest, whatever how the calendar falls. But they've got to fix this, because right now this is causing an issue for everybody. It's like the players, the universities, and it's not fair. It's because you guys want to expand the playoff. You want to grab as much money as you can, and now you have the situation, and now you don't know what you want to do about it, and you don't know how to fix it, because what they want, the end game, is 16-team playoff and a super conference. But that's years down the road, but it's going to come sooner than later. So they need to fix this, desperately, if they want to continue this and make them, or else they're going to have chaos every spring. And there's no spring portal.
Yeah, right.
They didn't think this through. I don't know who's making decisions. It's not the NCAA to an extent. They keep getting sued, so they just do whatever the Big Ten SEC commissioner wants.
It's true.
So they're going to have to fix this. It's going to be a huge uproar, and it could, I don't know, it could end up in legality issues too. And that's the last thing I think anybody wants. But you never know with how the world's going to be in college football. But it is an absolute mess. I'm glad the kids are getting paid. I'm glad they have the freedom to move around like coaches have had, for all this time. But you can't destroy the sport. And if they keep doing something, it's going to hurt the fan base, because also at LSU, it's like he stays, him trying to recruit, or what happens? All the Ole Miss players go to LSU next year. Well, that's going to be great for the Ole Miss fan base, and just the optics are horrible on that.
Awful. Well, the optics are bad enough just inside the ACC, with 7-5 Duke headed to the ACC championship game. That's going to be a thing. We appreciate our guy Raymond, GA Kane fan. We appreciate all of you. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Canes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you next time. We are part of the awesome #1 sports podcasting network, the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.